So I just listened to a fantastic interview on YouTube with Dr. Catherine Henley. This was posted by Voynich Talk, one of the Voynich Ninja moderators. And it was just a great conversation. They were talking specifically about the charm at the end of the manuscript. So on the last page, there's sort of a blended language going on. And we know it's the charm because historically, charms have these crosses in between each word. I posted about this specific charm yesterday on my Substack, and I so wish I had listened to this first. I learned so much from Dr. Catherine Henley. She's like an expert on these. She says that they tend to turn up at the end of medical manuscripts specifically. And this blended language is not Voynishese. It's not what's written in the rest of the text. Only 2 words are, and the rest is sort of what is presumed by a lot of scholars to be Latin adjacent or German. Sometimes these charms are specifically made to not be read, to be illegible on purpose. It's generally considered that the first word is the word Poxleber. In German, this means goat liver. In my article, I point out that this could be a misinterpretation of some of the characters involved. So I wasn't able to translate the entire charm, but I applied the same logic and methods that I did for the rest of the translation using modern Irish to this section, meaning that 3 major letters are completely different when you look at them through an Irish lens as opposed to German or Latin. And Dr. Henley said on the podcast that these charms aren't always meant to be understood fully. In fact, they can purposefully contain secrets. And the first charms that we start seeing in history go all the way back to like around the 10th century. Now, when I started to translate the Voynich manuscript, I was looking at Lepontic, Lugano, and Venetic alphabets. I used these alphabets visually and sort of like the idea of Kiki and Boba in terms of curves and sharp lines to assign each character logically in the manuscript. And using this lexicon and a phonetic lexicon, I'm able to translate through modern Irish. Now, Cisalpine Celtic is connected to Gaelic languages. It's connected to Ogham. Ogham is a primitive script. It's a primitive alphabet dating all the way back to the 4th century and possibly earlier, most likely earlier. Now, because I've been looking through this text with an Irish lens, I looked at the charm with an Irish lens. In the interview, they don't talk about the meaning of the X or the cross. They just talk about it like it's a repeating symbol, a repeating pattern, but they don't actually talk about the meaning and what that cross means. So in primitive Irish script, Ogham, in primitive script, that cross means ailm. And ailm in Irish is the pine tree. All of the base lines in Ogham are trees. So ailm, A-I-L-M, is pine tree. Where do we see ailm? Ailments. Ailments. The history and uses for pine is so vast that I can't include it in this video. You'll have to do your own research, but pine is pretty important. So I'm not saying that all of these crosses in every single medical manuscript charm directly translates to pine tree. But I would like to posit that these crosses are representative of the symbol ailm for pine tree. And the cross wasn't actually talked about that much in the interview, which is one of the reasons why I'm making this video. Something that was talked about at the end of the podcast is how some of these charms are purposefully masked so the general public can't understand them. So like an early form of encryption, which that could be happening with this charm at the end of the manuscript. But with my Irish approach to it, I was finding that it seemed to be that there were distinct meanings for different readers. And if you were reading the text with a more Latin or German leaning understanding of characters, meaning you would read something like this as goat liver, Poxleber, which is a German phrase. But if you were to read it using the same logic that the rest of the script is written in, so this letter would turn like a key and read as an L or a fada, and this letter would read as a T, in which case you'd have the word pa for page fastened to others, and the word tuber or tube, meaning like a scroll. Another dimension to look at this would be if that's an L and not a fada, and that would be cylindrical bucket, tube. It should also be noted that this P also kind of looks like a U with a typo, in which case, that would read uil and it would be knowledge tuber. Now let's just say the fada wasn't a fada. Because it is horizontal, maybe it's not exactly like the Irish fada we see elsewhere in the text. Because it is tilted, maybe it does have like a noise to it that we see in German and Latin, making this read pock. Now, pock in Irish is the word for a buck. Tuber with the towers would then become the word bladder. The animal that's seen on the side has a long tail that does not look like a goat tail at all. There's a specific type of deer in Europe called fallow deer, and fallow deer have spots on the back, and it looks like there's spots on the back of this creature. Now, it could be a fallow deer, but later on as I was translating, I had one of the possibilities for this word to be moil, which is a very specific ancient hornless cow, and it's native to Ireland. And it has a distinct dome or mound on the top of its head. Its dew claw or hoof area is kind of like a deer. So of course I wasn't able to definitively translate this charm, but I came up with a bunch of possibilities and they're all on my Substack. Definitely check that out. And thank you so much to Voynich Talk and Dr. Catherine Henley for the interview. It was such a pleasure to watch. Le gras.